Ladies and gentlemen, to bring in Philip Ittner live from Kiev, operating on battery power, which thank you, good sir, for being with us in this circumstance. We can always, we now watch to see if you have a hat on or not these days to make sure you're keeping warm and the like. And I'll have questions from the chat room, I have no doubt for you.
Okay.
But it seems like we are entering into the Iranian situation, a similar situation to where Trump is with Ukraine, in that he just seems to think it's going to be easy, and when it isn't, he gets mad at the wrong person. He gets
Yeah.
gets
Well,
yeah.
to begin with, he's a simpleton.
Yes.
But aside from that, this whole idea of, oh, well, he's a great businessman, which, by the way, he also is not that. But,
Mm-hmm.
he does approach this as if it were a business deal. And international relations and diplomacy is not, um, some sort of arbitrage about, lease rights or,
Mm-hmm.
buying and selling real estate. These are two very, very different things. And he doesn't understand that.
Right.
He doesn't understand the complexities of all of these things, what it actually means to be involved in, international talks between warring parties or over potential conflict. I mean, I was eyewitness to the Iranian nuclear talks.
Mm-hmm.
John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov, and then our intermediaries, the Iranians, and round after round after round of talks in Geneva. And I mean, it just took forever, and the slightest thing could throw a monkey wrench, or a wrench in the machinery. I mean, I remember distinctly one night. I think I probably told you this story, but one night we were sitting there at the Intercontinental Hotel, which is
Mm-hmm.
where the press corps would gather and gaggle, and everybody came running out like their hair was on fire. And Lavrov came out a few minutes later, cool as a cucumber, asked them to reopen the bar so we could have a scotch. And it's you just I don't know, to this day I don't think anybody knows exactly what happened there, but clearly Moscow and clearly Lavrov had had played some sort of card that sent all the Western diplomatic teams scrambling back to their embassies to make you know phone calls. Now it might have been something good. We don't
Right.
know. He might have conceded to something, but the point is still valid that these are very, very, very delicate and volatile things. These diplomatic talks, especially when you talk about war. So, he's saying you should approach Iran like he has done Ukraine. You know, I mean, what they've been doing with Ukraine has been so ham-fisted and so lacking in understanding of the complexities of the conflict. Now we're hearing some, you know, possible positive things coming out of the current talks. This is day
Mm-hmm.
two of the round of talks in Geneva,
Right.
direct talks between a Russian delegation and a Ukrainian delegation. There's a U.S. is there as the negotiator. I will believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still deeply concerned that Witkoff is point on this, well out of his depth. We'll see what happens. But the Ukrainian side came out tonight apparently and said we're making progress. We're making progress, and surprisingly, even pointed out the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is really tricky
Yeah.
because it's the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. The Russians currently occupy it. It's essential for Ukrainian power, electricity, but then also, it could be exported, and also additionally, um, Russian occupied Ukraine in the Donbass, would want some of that electricity as well that's generated at that plant. So that's a tricky negotiation issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the other one is going to be, and nobody really talked. It's interesting yet, and I think the talks only ended about 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my bet that they broke for dinner
Yep.
about 2 hours ago, around 6 or 7 in Switzerland. Because we're getting these quotes, but what we haven't heard is what's going to be the most difficult thing. Well, there are two things that are going to be the most difficult thing.
Right.
One is the four provinces, the oblasts, that Russia has laid claim to because they own a fraction of it. Again, I make the analogy all the time. It's an armed force takes San Diego
Right.
and then says, "Well, give us all of California." I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Or Corpus Christi and says, "Give us all of Texas." And then it takes the UP and says, "Give us all of Michigan." I could go on and on and on. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
and it would be very, very controversial here, because you're submitting tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people to occupation by the Russians, and that's pretty
Yeah.
harsh,
Right.
because the Russians tend to put down um, any opposition to them,
Mm-hmm.
or assert that they initially go into towns that they're going to occupy, and there's an initial round of like really harsh crackdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I wish people
Whoops.
on the
Froze for.
air,
Okay.
and we had Alexander Berber, is the head of the tactical team on the ground here for the GoFundMe that is trying to get generators here. We talked about what it's like to be in occupied Russian territory, and that's no joke. So
Mm-hmm.
if if in the peace negotiations Ukraine was forced, the Zelensky administration was forced to cede this territory, they're ceding so many fellow Ukrainians to this despotism.
Yeah.
Anyhow. So that's going to be a big, big sticking point. The four provinces. I mean, that's dangerous for Zelensky. Zelensky's
Right.
already got some growing political issues going, and I'm sure that when the war is over and politics returns to normal in Ukraine, we could see him ousted, or he may just walk away. I mean, he
Right.
has said repeatedly he's exhausted. I mean, you look at the guy; he's exhausted.
Well,
And he
also
said
there.
repeatedly,
So
I'm going to go sit out the Black Sea and drink a beer," is what he always
yeah,
says.
the latest is that the peace talks between Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. in Geneva concluded after 2 days, described as difficult and tense, with both sides
Yeah,
agreeing to
that's
continue discussions
what the
despite
Russians said.
no breakthrough on territorial issues. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky expressed hope that Trump's public demands for Kyiv to make concessions were tactics rather than firm decisions, calling it not fair because he just rambled out some bullshit on the airplane yesterday. Um,
Yeah.
it's silly. Discussions focused on humanitarian issues and prisoner exchanges, but the thorny issue of territory, particularly the Donbas region, remained a significant sticking point in negotiations. The Russians aren't going to give up on that, and the Ukrainians can't give
Well,
away
no,
land
they've
they haven't took.
already,
Yeah,
they've already, yeah. Well, one, the Ukrainians can't do it by constitutional law. The
right,
president cannot just cede that they would,
right,
the Duma, I'm sorry, the Rada, the Duma, the
mm,
Rada, the Ukrainian Rada would have to vote on this, and it would be a long process. And as I say, it would be extremely controversial and
right,
politically very risky for Zelensky.
mm-hmm,
We've seen his potentially his biggest rival is General Zaluzhny, who fought off the initial onslaught in the full scale invasion, and he is by and large loved in Ukraine.
yeah,
So he could pose a political problem, and he got kind of sent into exile to be ambassador to the court of St. James in London. And he's been very, very quiet, very, very. Apparently today he came out and said some stuff about his tensions with Zelensky. Okay, so that's the
Hmm.
issue of the territories is probably going to be the biggest issue because you're
Hmm.
right. The Russians aren't just going to let them in because aside from the Ukrainian constitution, the Russians have been spinning the narrative that they had a referendum in these oblasts and we won overwhelmingly. And
Right.
so the people are going to welcome it. Forget the fact that one, you only had a referendum in these little slivers of areas where you control, and two, you came around with soldiers, armed
Right.
guards at ballot
Yeah,
boxes. I
what
mean,
Trump
it's
wants
it's
to do with the midterms.
yeah, exactly. So again, so the territorial thing is really, really thorny. The other thing that I'm surprised that not a lot of people have been talking about it. Some have, but this is really a contentious issue, and it's the children.
Yeah.
The children have to be returned to Ukraine, to their relatives, to whatever. They need a database of where these kids were taken from, where they were sent to, and they need to be returned. And those two issues are just going to be something that I don't see where Russia and Ukraine are going to find common ground.
Hmm.
It's just, and no matter what, again, and then it goes back to what you're saying about Trump. Trump seems to think that he can just by force of will or intimidation or exerting kind of whatever pressure, transactional pressure. He thinks that that's going to solve it. Well, the problem is for Ukrainians, and then we could talk the flip side with the Russians, but I don't care what the Russians want. The
Right.
Ukrainians are not going to give up those four provinces.
Yeah.
And they're also not going to forget about their kids.
Yeah.
And so how do you find and at some point also, and I think this is a third issue which I think can be resolved, but it's going to be difficult, is reparations.
Right.
Russia has got to accept guilt and responsibility and has got to pay reparations for Ukraine. I don't think that's I don't think that's insurmountable, but that's another problem that's
Well, I think
going to
it'll
happen.
come via sanctioning. It won't be something that Russia will
Yeah,
do. It will be something that the international community has to do off the top. If your oil is going to go back on the market, 20% of your profit from it or whatever is going to go to Ukraine forever or for the next 100 years or whatever to rebuild it, depending on how much that that is. I want to bring up a couple of stories also that are kind of going on in Russia, and including
but also
yeah,
one
go
more
ahead.
one more
Yeah,
quick thing before we move on from the negotiations, and that
yeah,
is I will address the flip side of the coin in the Russians. I don't think the Russians want to stop fighting. I don't think Putin can stop fighting because if there's a peace deal or a ceasefire tomorrow and the lines solidify and the territory that Russia has gained is all it's going to get, Putin is in real trouble because he has lost over 1 million casualties for nothing,
yeah,
nothing, and he can try and spin it and the Russians are so terrified of what might happen with Putin removed from the power structure because he's made himself
oh,
essential.
sorry,
So they might
sorry.
even lie to themselves about, oh yeah, we got victory, we saved our Russian-speaking brethren in the Donbass. But
Hmm.
people who are realists and people who are going to look at this objectively, 1 million men for no strategic gain
Yeah,
whatsoever. They didn't get Kiev, they didn't change to a friendly government, and they
yeah,
didn't regain control of the Black Sea by taking the North Shore. Odessa is still Ukrainian and is going to be Ukrainian. And for Putin, that would be absolutely catastrophic and really dangerous for him as well. So as much as we kind of hope for, I mean, like I'd love for this war to end, and I don't care how it happens.
right.
And that's many Ukrainians feel the same way, but these are issues that can't be overlooked and they cannot be negotiated away completely.
Right.
There's going to have to be compromise, obviously, because that's what negotiations are. But the kids and those four provinces, those two issues,
Well, the Russians have
It's
no interest.
that's
Okay, there's a couple of reasons. One is Putin can't give up the Donbass without basically being decapitated for wasting all these lives and doing all this stuff to get nothing in return. But getting something the size of like 6 football fields in return for a million
yeah.
dead people. It's just tactically stupid and points to the fact that he's insane. And somebody's going to wake up to that fact. Even somebody maybe even worse than him is going to come into power in the same situation where Zhang Youxia in China was obviously gunning for Xi Jinping, so he purged him and had the dude arrested. He just arrested the head of his military and had him thrown in jail and decapitated his entire Joint Chiefs to where it's basically him and the accountant are the only people still left on that account, and the accountant's in deep shit. So there's a lot of parallels happening in China versus and Russia at the same time. The only difference is that China's not engaged in an active military conflict. Well, they are, but it's an info war in many ways. But
Yeah.
this number is one of the things that has shifted what the conversation about what's happening inside Russia, and we'll get to that in just 1 second, is that for a while there, it was 30,000 was the total killed between Ukrainians and Russians. That was about the overall, killed and wounded every month, about 30,000, almost evenly split. It is now to the point where that's just the Russian number, and the Ukrainian number has gone way down because they're using a lot of drones, they're using a lot of mines, they're setting fields and then moving back. They're very strategically smart about it. One of the biggest things that's going to happen after this war is over is the removal of the mines. It's going to be a terrible
Ugh.
process if it can be done. If there's not some sort of DMZ. Um, uh,
Well, this is the most. This is the most. The most mined country in the world
mhm.
currently. This is the country with the most unexploded ordnance is the
Yeah.
terminology for it. So it's not just mines; it's also artillery shells that didn't explode and all the rest of it. And
Hmm.
that's going to play. Look, I lived in London for 25 years,
Hmm.
and I lived in the East End for a good 10 of those.
Hmm.
And every couple of years, I'd try to go home, and there'd be a cop standing at some intersection going, "No, you can't go down there. They found something."
Yeah, they found a
And,
bomb from World War II.
they
Right.
found a bomb from World War II. Now, mind you, I mean, this was the East End, so this was the part of London that got hit the most. So,
Right.
but
Where all the
even,
factories
what is
were.
that?
Right.
Well, it's where all the factories were. That's right,
Hmm.
and the shipping, because I live down by the river, so all the ports were down by there. The loading platforms and all the rest of it. Anyhow, regardless, how many years is that? 70 years, 80 years after the fact, and they were still finding unexploded ordnance. So I mean,
Hmm.
this is a gargantuan effort after the war. So
Yeah. So this is apparently affecting the Z Patriots, the Z vloggers, the mill bloggers
that's
for
my
Russia.
guess.
Russia is
That's my guess
doomed.
this week.
Yeah.
That man is Jonathan Fink. He's a British analyst.
Hmm.
I just saw him about a week and a half ago here. He was in the audience. He was in the studio. So he's going to be our. We're doing a collab this week. So
Oh, nice.
anyhow, that's Silicon Curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, so Silicon Curtain, he goes, bad things are coming for Russian Z Patriot Maxim Kalishnikov goes full doommonger on the crisis of statehood enveloping
Mhm.
Russia. Today's warning siren isn't coming from liberal Moscow, Navalny's team, or TV Rain. It's coming from the other side of the ideological trench, the Z Patriot ecosystem, and one of its loudest, most apocalyptic voices, Maxim Kalishnikov, which is such a douchebag online, like, it's like being 1776 AR-15 Patriot. That's what his name like is the equivalent of in Russian on their mill blogger thing. Is now saying the quiet part out loud. Russia isn't just losing momentum in a war, it's sliding into a crisis of statehood. And this is something you and I have talked about for a long time,
Hmm.
is that one of the reasons why Putin can't unravel this shit is because his entire economy is propped up by it at this point, and there is no fallback. The United States, England, all these other countries after World War II or some other point where they were really engaged in a war had other industries, other things they were known for and great at that they could get back to. As a matter of fact, that's what benefited the United States post World War II was the fact that all of our all of our factories we had built that were doing cars and a few other things in the Industrial Revolution were expanded for military use during World War II to such an extraordinary extent that the production capability of them was extraordinary. And then when the war ended, they were like, oh, well, let's make cars and tractors and lawnmowers and all kinds of shit. And so manufacturing boomed after World War II because the expansion that was necessary for the war. Ukraine's in a situation like that as well. Like all these these little drone factories and shit that they're putting together, when they shift over, they're either going to be selling those military drones to some other country and share that technology with NATO countries and the like and basically get tacit NATO membership by doing that, or they're going to transform it into a consumer electronics boom within that country and become like strategically the Taiwan of Europe. That's really where they're
Yeah.
headed because they have all this they're not as military focused, say, as China and Russia are, and their societies are built. The Ukrainian society is built for European normalization. It's built for just making products and selling them on the world market, and being a
Hmm.
part of the IKEAing of the world, as it were. You know, but
Well, there's
Russia
a lot
isn't.
of development. No, Russia is not. And so what are those soldiers who are conscripted and were sent to Ukraine to fight and are now, going to come back with PTSD and all the rest of it, and the alcoholism and it's
Yeah.
rampant in Russia, and they're going to come back to villages that don't have any work because they were transitioned into making, something connected to the war. It's a war economy, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not just going to be able to flip a switch and go to back to civilian production. So these guys are going to go back, having been conscripted and sent to the front. And what are they going to do with their lives? I mean, so Putin's going to have to contend with that. Does he keep them mobilized as some sort of peacekeeping force in the Donbass? I don't see that happening either.
Right.
But that is a major issue for them, and one of the reasons that they're in a catch-22. They can't exactly stop. But you're also right with the Ukrainians. Is that the Ukrainians have already started exporting weaponry
Yeah.
because they're already. It's funny. I went to about a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a one of these secret drone production centers,
Mm-hmm.
and I spoke to him and I said, I understand you're just trying to get to actually export. That you reach this point where you can start exporting. He said, well, no, that's not 100% true. What we're exporting is drones that we've already moved past that
Right.
aren't they don't function on our battlefield because Russia has certain countermeasures
Mm-hmm.
that they've developed for this generation of drone. So they're just sitting there collecting dust.
Mm-hmm.
At one point they were the cutting edge, and they're still of use to. We could sell them to any number of nations
Right.
that would love to have them because they don't have an enemy
Mm-hmm.
that's as adept or has gone through the crucible of war, so that the Russians do have countermeasures. Maybe Ethiopia and Eritrea want to start it up again.
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia gets a bunch of these third generation drones from Ukraine. Eritrea doesn't have anything like what the Russians have, so that's just an example, hypothetical. But that's my point, is that they're already starting to export and they're going to continue to export. And they're going to look, when this is all said and done, if America is really going to withdraw from Europe in terms of like sending, men and material over here,
Right.
it's widely spoken about here that Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
could kick up its military industrial complex. They're certainly going to be top notch when it comes to trainers.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have Ukrainian officers, drone operators, being sent all around the world to train other. I mean, the Brits just recently in the last week, they had, I think it was an SAS unit, uh, got trained by the Ukrainians, and the SAS, okay, one of the best, most elite fighting forces in the world, basically said, "Oh, the Ukrainians they're 10 times as good as we are on this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to rethink everything."
Yeah.
So they're all, people are already starting to recognize it, and they're recognizing that the Ukrainians is the people to come to
Right.
when you want to learn this stuff. But then, in addition to that, there's major developments in AI that go along with drones. They're doing all sorts of things about, power efficiency because they've been forced to, because of the attacks on the electrical grid. They're going to change the entire electrical system is going to be changed here, and it's going to be using some, state of the art new, like, again, like the solid state stuff that
Mm-hmm.
the power banks and things like that, which are getting us through this winter. How how to get those to how function as an alternative to electricity from the if you're in well, I tell you, if you're in Hurricane Alley in the
Yeah.
states, the advances that are being made here in solid state batteries,
Yep.
for example, will be benefiting you.
Yeah.
That technology is a lot of that's cutting edge here in Europe in general, but specifically in Ukraine. So yeah, I think this war ends and Russia. It's interesting, this blogger, the Maxim Kalishnikov, which
Yeah.
Jonathan quotes there. He's not the only one. The head of the Donbas um, uh, militia, a guy by the name of Gerkin or Strelkov, is his war name. He's sitting in prison somewhere. I think it's Rostov in Russia, and he is openly saying, "We lost. We lost a long time ago, and we're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna, and it's not gonna get any better."
Right.
Which is why they locked him up. So and just the last thing on this as well, and I think we've spoken about in the past. In the 1990s, when Russia quelled the uprising in Chechnya, um, the real rebels, the real Chechen rebels, not the puppet that eventually got put in there, but the guys that actually did want to secede from Moscow. The first, one of their first president was a guy by the name of Joker Dudayev.
Mm-hmm.
And Dudayev says, and it's just amazing to me. If you look it up, it's incredible that he says this in like 1997 or 1996. He says it's going to be Ukraine. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be the fate of the Russian Federation will. It's not going to be decided here in Chechnya.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be decided in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and one or the other is going to break the back of the other. And I think it's becoming painfully obvious,
Yep.
even to Russians themselves, that this was a terrible idea, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be extremely damaging to them. Some people argue with me about the whole Federation breaking up, and they make good points. I still think it's a distinct possibility that
I
the
think the
center
only thing
cannot
hold
hold.
I think the only thing holding it together after this is the international community's desire for normalcy and not letting it fall apart. I think there are
Yeah.
more people that run in there to shore it up with 2x4s when it's starting to collapse because they fear the breakaways and the nukes in each of those different things, and it's better to deal with one, you know, rogue situation than five of the same threat level. So I think that's always been what's helped Russia keep its shit together is that the international community, the UN, even NATO to some degree has been more apt to like normalize the shape of Russia beyond the 91, after the 91 borders. One of the things, there are a couple things I want to address. Um,
China
yeah,
might have something to say about that, but yeah,
yeah, agree. Well, I think they want something similar too because China's in danger of breaking up into five provinces as well. Their five provinces breaking up into five different countries is entirely possible in the near term in China if the CCP loses its grip. And there's a lot of noise over there right now, so it's hard. And well, okay, this leads into it. One of the reasons why it's hard to see the trajectory of what's happening there is because they have they lock down media. If something comes out on, a netizen writes something on Chinese social media, it's immediately stomped on. People can get arrested for posting stuff that's against the CCP, or that even if it's just embarrassing, even if they're just like, look what happened in front of my house, they can be thrown in jail literally for doing that, because that act is discouraging people from just showing the truth around them in case stuff starts to light up, and then they go, oh, it's just, people have to be afraid to film awful in front of them at all, because it will grow if we allow. That's how things metastasize. People say, oh, there's an uprising, and therefore they feel motivated to join it, is the theory. So if you even film it just to go, oh shit, look what's going on, that still might encourage people. So those people get thrown in jail, even if they're just filming it like a car accident. And so Russia has decided, apparently, to block Telegram as of April 1st, because it's a foreign-owned company, which it isn't. Most of the servers for Telegram are still in Russia. The owner is Russian. He created it specifically there. He was arrested in France, and I guess is still doing time, and unless they cut him some sort of deal and let him walk that I'm not aware of. But a lot of people use VPNs anyways to get around it, just like they do in China. China has what they call the Great Firewall, and Russia is basically going for a similar thing. And both of those countries will attack our social media networks through bots and all kinds of other stuff, because we do not have those same kind of protections, and we never will, because it's in our Constitution. So the free flow of information is written into this, so it is both a power and a vulnerability. So they're willing to act on it. And one of the ways that they are protecting themselves against the very weapon that they use the most is by shutting down all these entry points for people to get inside Russia to hear the news from a different source than the approved channels. China already does this, like I said. People still get around it using VPNs, a virtual private network. And Russia's now tightening that, taking out of this. So Russia's media regulator, Roskomnadzor, has decided to fully block the Telegram messaging app from starting April 1st, according to Baza. It's so funny. Telegram news channel Baza said on Tuesday, which is, again, so many Russians get their news from Telegram. It's actually their primary site. We talk about how, like, Rogan and Twitter and whatever are the way that people get their news in the United States. Well, Telegram is that in Russia. And so shutting it down apparently has Solovyev all pissed off, because one of his biggest ways that he makes money and gets his message out is via Telegram. It's almost the same as the TikTok fight in the United States. Telegram's block has caused a major rift in the pro-Kremlin propagandist camp. Perhaps never before Vladimir Putin supporters expressed such indignation at his actions. From one of his chief propagandists, Vladimir Solovyev, to State Duma deputies and Z-bloggers on the Ukrainian front, everyone is criticizing the authorities for blocking Telegram. To finally finish off the Russian Armed Forces command and control system after the Kremlin restricted Starlinks, Roskomnadzor decided to slow down Telegram. Beat your own to make others afraid. We can screw ourselves even worse. Be afraid of NATO. Wrote little-known Z-blogger Ross Marzov. Meanwhile, the most famous propagandist, Vladimir Solovyev, a mouthpiece for Putin's aggression, lamented the decline in his subscriber count for Telegram's slowdown, and claimed that RKN had deprived him of a portion of his audience by failing to provide any worthy alternatives. So they have not created their own internal Telegram, which Russia was in the first place. And again, one of the reasons why I shy away from using it is because even though it's technically seen as a foreign company now that it's moved out of the country, most of the servers that Telegram operates are in Russia proper. Which is like, and of course they have a key to it, the same way that China does. Like all the servers, like the Chinese government still has access to the Oracle servers that they're housing the TikTok stuff on in the United States. And anybody who tells you difference is just protecting their back pocket. The first time we've seen such an internal rift with various pro-Kremlin communities, Tatiana, this is the first time. Telegram has replaced mainstream media in Russia. People interested in politics and most of the Russian elite follow Telegram channels to stay informed. And that's the problem, though. That's why he shut it down. That's, again, he knows. He's not like, oh shit, really? He's like, oh fuck, they can find out on Telegram how full of shit I am. Shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. It's, again, this is not an accident. That's exactly why he shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, he's been doing that. He's been shutting everything down since the full scale began. I mean, I think YouTube is blocked, Facebook is blocked. I believe TikTok is blocked.
Yep. Yeah. It
But
became a general
nearly
rule.
everything except for except for like the Contact VK, the Contact.
Yeah, which is their
just
Facebook. Their shitty Facebook knockoff.
It's a Facebook clone.
I had
It's
a
so
channel
funny.
on there at one point, and I was able to broadcast to it, and that went away. I'm not sure why. I must have accidentally violated their terms of service, in theory.
The Contact VK makes me laugh so much because if I used to have a
Yeah.
profile on there as well. I don't know. I don't access it anymore, even if I could.
What a dump.
But but it's also like it's down to like the font and the colors and it's Facebook. It's just
There's a ripoff.
Facebook. All the dude did was grab Facebook's coding and just translate it to Russian and say, well, there's our Russian Facebook. You know,
which is what Trump did with Truth Sinkhole from Mastodon.
Yeah.
He just stole it. Like, instead of giving credit to the Mastodon architecture, they just stole it outright and just created their own thing on Mastodon and called it, and he wanted it to be Trump as, .com or whatever as the site, but that was already taken because he's stupid. So they did it on Mastodon, and all those things, or whatever network it is on Mastodon. If you're doing a business one, it would be like, whatever, fart.business, and that's where Fart, the company, does its business using the Mastodon architecture, like a Slack almost. Or if you wanted a social network, you would put .social on it. So that's where Truth Social came from. It's using the architecture of Mastodon. You just ripped it off, and they just took the dot out, and then that's the official name for it. It's like so lazy, but it's obviously. Truth Sinkhole has, again, another example of how Trump's business mind thinks. So, like, take an already saturated market and add something else to it. So, like, hey, a bunch of other people are digging in this dirt. There must be gold here. And you're like, yeah, we've run it out, by everybody joining in at once. The other thing, too, is that there's a similar situation with Trump and his folks here in the States, in that this whole idea of not trusting America, the narrative that we've had, as far as NATO and Europe and the like, especially around Ukraine, not trusting America in general, there has been a shift in the languaging. Maybe it's because they're finally asking the polling question, right? Not, do you trust America, but do you trust Trump? Because the polling against Trump has gone in such a way that it is clear the American people are against Trump, by and large, including a large swath of independents who may have voted for him or may have not voted at all. Data tells us that Kamala Harris voters are sticking with the Democratic Party while Trump voters are leaving the Republicans. And this is in a midterm. This is exactly the opposite of what you want to hear. Look at the vote for Congress. It's very important, right? 2024 Harris voters, they vote for Democrats on average by 89 points. The Trump voters mostly stick by Republicans, but by a significantly smaller at 83 points. That is, again, the percentage. There are actually fewer Republican voters in the country. That's why they always count on counties. That's why he's like, look how red the country looks. They're like, yeah, because those counties are fucking empty, in the rural areas.
All 12 people in that county.
Exactly. Are all Republicans, and only half of them are eligible voters, and only half of those vote. So whatever. This means that by percentage, 100% of the voters, vote Trump or whatever. But, that's 3 people at the end of the day. It means that Harris voters are sticking by Democrats by and large, and that Trump is eating shit. And it's not just the House, it's the Senate. Democrats' chance to win the Senate a year ago was 19%. according to Kelsey, 30% 6 months ago, and now Democrats have a 40% chance of taking back the U.S. Senate, and that's the trending direction we're in. That's
Mm,
not going to reverse because the economy's not going to improve. The all
no.
the things that he is patting himself on the back. It's very much the same situation that Putin and Xi finds themselves in. That they are on this train is on a track, and it is not going
Yeah.
to stop at their station, no matter what they think. They can yell at everybody and talk shit about their opposition all they want to, but it isn't working. It's not convincing people. And I think
And as somebody whose both of his parents died due to complications from dementia.
mhm,
And I went through that process with my father. I went through that process with my mother. And everybody makes this point, but I don't think it can be said enough.
mhm,
This is the best that Donald Trump is going to be
yep,
today.
yeah,
Tomorrow he's going to be worse, and that's
yeah,
going to be the best
yep,
Trump of. But it as you say, it's on a train, it's on a collision course, and sadly, again, watching my beloved parents die of this, it's just one of these things where
mhm,
it doesn't get better. It doesn't. It just worsens and worsens and worsens, and it's gonna get unavoidable. It's gonna
mhm,
be obvious. And then, of course, yeah. I mean, his policies are atrocious, and
right,
what's happening. Americans don't like what they see on the streets of their cities, and look, you're right. You're right. I can't speak to she as much as that's your
mhm,
bailiwick, but I think you're right with both. As an American watching Trump, and as somebody who studied Russia and saw the rise of Putin and knows the history of this region and what this is going to mean when he loses this war, because he's going to lose this war.
yeah,
Um, it is an inevitability almost. Now how that takes form, how
mhm,
what twists and turns that that railway
mhm,
track is going to take around mountains and down ravines and all the rest of it to belager the analogy. But I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
yeah,
Both Trump and Putin are living on borrowed time.
yeah, and
It's
as is
just
Xi Jinping,
either
yeah,
politically. Yeah, and again, I'll defer to you on sheep, but either politically, physically, whatever mental health, whatever it is, you're right. It's going one direction, and it's going down, and
right,
it's not going to. The inevitability of their demise,
mhm,
I think has already been set.
yeah,
Again, how that manifests, I don't know, and I can't say. And lots of people speculate about lots of different things, but yeah, it's both of those guys are screwed. And
yeah,
I'll take
and
it. I'll take your word for it that she's also screwed.
yeah, yeah. There's one of the reasons why he does not give addresses anymore. Like Xi Jinping literally is, for all practical purposes, a walking corpse. He literally just waves at people. There has not been since the party congress and where he gave a really short speech. There has not been that I'm aware of any kind of major public statement at all, or even minor, like giving a little "How do you do?" He just stands there with a Mona Lisa smile and like a statue. It's bizarre, and they walk him
Yeah,
around to places and he waves and shake hand, but the people with him do all the talking. Yeah, it's nuts. So this is this is Ty Cobb, which Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and so on. Ty, who worked with Trump in the first term, who watched his speech where he was like going through all the people they had arrested, and he was just holding up dossiers and this kind of stuff, and was just kind of leafing through it, and he was like, just joking. He goes, talking about Minnesota, but yeah, he goes, I'm going through this because I think we have plenty of time. I'm going to a beautiful place in Switzerland where I'm sure very happily waited for in Switzerland. They don't know about this. They have other problems, but they don't have this problem. Look, holds up another page and says, killed someone. This is like, I think this is the other Ty Cobb. Where is it? Yeah, this is it. Ty Cobb talks about, and he worked with him. He goes, I think there's been a significant decline. He's always been driven by narcissism, but I think the dementia and the cognitive decline are, palpable, as do many experts, including many physicians. He was on Ari Melber's show. Jonathan Reiner has talked about it. He was Dick Cheney's cardiologist. And if anybody has seen somebody physically and mentally decline, it's that guy. The irony that guy had any work to do at all. It's, I mean, we always talk about like Trump had a brain scan and they found nothing. The same thing I would argue is the same, checking on Dick Cheney's heart. There's nothing, sir. Nothing wrong? No, just nothing at all, actually. There isn't one.
I think Quiet Piggy is just the beginning,
right?
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
he's going to, because that's a symptom. The lack of control, the lack of the lack of being able to filter yourself and socially kind of know how to maneuver that. It's going to get worse. I saw it particularly in my father. My mother wasn't as bad with that, but my father got to a point where he would say some of the most insane shit ever. And it's just like, it just, the filter goes away. And right. Trump is, I think Cobb is right there. I mean, he's always been an asshole. He's always been a loudmouth. He's always been obnoxious and offensive. And that's going back to the Central Park Five.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always been an offensive prick. But I think as the illness manifests itself more and more, he's going to start saying some stuff that.
Well, he already has, I would argue, at people about the Epstein files. I think that's the big shift. Is having him. We shouldn't be surprised at all. There should be no surprise that he is talking to AOC and others and calling them names, or even reporters he doesn't like. The Quiet Piggy part isn't. It's in line with. It's almost like the natural ad absurdum version of Donald Trump. Where it does get weird is where he's like, when the Epstein files hit last summer and people were like, that memo came out and he was like, if you don't believe that it's over, I don't need your support, and that kind of stuff, where he's kind of just dunked on his own people, his own base in a very angry and dismissive way. That, I think, is an area where,
over under, he says the N-word.
I agree.
Before the end of his term.
I totally agree. I think, 3 months.
What do you reckon the over-under is on that? Jasmine Crockett is going to come out with some frickin' zinger.
Yeah.
And it really gets him because she's so good at that.
Yeah.
She's going to say, and he's just going to,
or just about a city that's known for its black population.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, honestly, especially after the midterms or right before the midterms, when the stress is at its zenith. Because, again, he took a week off after the last election. Nobody heard from him at all for almost a week, like 6.5 days, because he collapsed because of exhaustion and needed, IVs and all this other stuff. And so he couldn't even go out. That is not, again, that was the best it's ever been, and it's ever going to be. And so it's all downhill from there. You watch as this drift towards Democrats getting, more, votes, which would give them the ability to investigate and to impeach him again. And if we got the Senate, perhaps even carry it out. What a crazy notion. Watch the stress have an impact on his mental health, because he has no moderating, system for, clearing his head other than golf, I guess. Right. So he's not doing that anymore. He huffs and puffs walking across the room to a podium. When he went on that thing with his granddaughter, they did a little puff piece documentary about him golfing with his granddaughter, and he was breathing heavy when he rolled up in the fucking golf cart. It's not good. And he knows this. He's very aware of it. Like he almost broke Melania's hand when he was walking down the steps the other day because he was squeezing it so hard to not fall down the stairs. He's been talking about how scary the steps are, and he's going to say that at some point. Like we're putting in an elevator. Fuck this. Like he's gonna do it. He's like, I'm not going to let the stairs get me the way they got Biden or something. Just watch for it. Or he's just going to come out of the back of the plane. They're just going to lower him. And if they're going to put one of those like little like track chairs that goes on a flight of stairs to get him out of there. And they have that system, by the way, to remove the president on a gurney or in a wheelchair just in case anything happens. They're going to start using it. I'm telling you, we're not that far away. And that whole thing about the MRI, where he's like, I had an MRI. No, I had a CT scan. And then Dr. Drew comes out and just mocks everybody for asking questions about the MRI that he said he had. That, as if it was him, or it was the news that was full of shit or whatever. He's like, they should have known he didn't get an MRI from what he discussed. We're like, no. He's lying.
He said
he said he got an MRI, and then he was like, "Oh no, it was a CT scan." No, he got both. He's getting all of it. He's getting it all the time. That's why he's had 3 fucking cognitives, right? A cognitive, physical, right? Which is just fucking goofy.
I've seen that. I've seen that test again. Child of dementia sufferers. I've seen that test. I've watched my mother take that test.
Yeah.
And it's just for him to be sitting there going, a lot of people you can't, it's really difficult. And, I aced it. You don't ace it. It's not that kind of test, you dummy. It's not graded on a scale. There's no percentage. You don't get an 80%. I got a B plus. No, man. It's pass or fail.
Yeah.
I think you are able to do these things because, and not to go too deep into it because I'm not a physician, but just having witnessed it, what it does is the test is made for you to recognize whether or not you can maintain a thought in your brain. So they'll ask you at the beginning of the thing, what day of the week is it? Oh, it's Wednesday. Well, what did you do yesterday? What did you do on Tuesday? Oh, well, we went shopping and stuff. And then 30 minutes down the road, they go, what day of the week is it? And mom is like, are we Tuesday? Are we Wednesday?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's Wednesday, Helen. What did you do yesterday? What did you do Tuesday? Was that the day we went to and it's just, it's not, and then at the end, the whole, there it is. Yeah. That's it. Right. So all of it, it's not right or wrong. It's how is your brain working? How is your capability, your function, all of that?
You're literally
very, very simple things.
One of them is read this list of letters out loud. The subject must tap with his hand at each letter A. No points if lesser or greater than equal to 2 errors or whatever. So FBA, CMNAA, JKLBA, FA, KDE, AAA, JA, MOFA, AAB. There we go. AAB. Right. So, it like that's the kind of test it is. Where like if you're like, oh shit, I tapped like that. That's not you figuring out like reorganizing. You've got such a high IQ, you can create your own alphabet like J.R.R. Tolkien created Elven. Right. It's just simply, does your brain and your hand work together in such a way that amazing.
He's screwed. He is absolutely screwed. So we'll see what happens. Obviously we're all over. I'll fly home if I have to. I'm casting my ballot for sure. But yeah, like if we do take the Senate, God, if we could actually remove him, and then once the king is off the playing board, then all the malfeasance, all the corruption, all the we just start, because they won't have the great leader to kind of
That's
like
right.
always have the threat of his mob and their violence. And I mean, all those guys are going to be screwed. So, like, I've had people say to me, "Yeah, but then we'll get Vice President Vance." No, 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 no. Vance has been up to some shit. He could be impeached as well. And then we have Speaker you know Jeffries gets into the executive. Who knows, but he has created such a cast of absolute
Yeah.
incompetent, corrupt, and it's very much like the Putin thing, and
Yeah.
I would presume Xi as well, or the
Yeah.
party in China,
Uh
is
huh.
that they're caught in this situation where they have to support a system or a person or whatever it is that is clearly not doing a good job because he's made himself essential,
Hmm.
and he is he's the a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right?
Right.
And if that weakest link is your commander in chief or your president or your chairman or whatever, all the people that circle in his orbit are either going to start looking for advantage to survive the thing by actually becoming the opposition, or they're going to rally round the wagons and
Yeah.
try. I fear with the MAGA types, it's going to be rally the wagons, because
Yeah.
there is no replacement for Trump.
Hmm.
Marco Rubio can try as much as he likes, but he's not Trump, and there
Yeah.
is no MAGA without Trump.
Right.
So you know, it. I look, and you know how I feel about Trump in terms of relations with Russia. I mean, I think they're fellow travelers, and I think America and Russia will be better without Putin and without Trump. I think both countries will benefit by losing
Yes.
these assholes. So,
Yes, I agree. I think there'll be a major sea change and stuff. We're not going to never have
uh,
problems like this again, certainly. But I will think that I do think that there's a certain level of MAGA that will be permanently burned to the point where they'll kind of recede back into where they were as a voting bloc previous to this, and have sort of
yeah,
at best a Tea Party impact on votes coming forward, but not on this kind of like major grip on the electorate and fear. Because literally once he's gone, this idea that these guys are going to somehow be as I guess forceful or aggressive as they were on January 6th again for JD Vance or John Thune or Ted Cruz or somebody is fucking ridiculous. So, anyways, we're at the end of the show. Thank you so much for being on today. I hope you have power soon and you stay
yeah,
warm.
I hope so too.
What the current state of On the Edge? What do you have another guest lined up? Are you working on stuff?
Uh, we had a really good episode last week, and I urge everybody to go and watch it. We've taken a dip in viewership, so I'd like to get boosted as much as possible. There's a really good interview with a guy who provided us with our generator, so even if we do keep losing power, we'll be able to maintain stuff. We've recorded a couple of episodes so that we have them in our back pocket just in case. So last week, which I urge everybody to go and watch, it was a really good one with Alexander Barbier, who's the one who's delivering generators to like old folks' homes and schools and these things that they've set up called invincibility points
Mm-hmm.
in around Kiev, where you can go and you can get warmed up, you can charge your batteries, you can get connected to the internet. So he's the one delivering whatever you contribute. He's the one that's out there doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
Alexander and I spoke for about a little over an hour. This coming week, we're doing a collaboration with Silicon Curtain. Jonathan Fink was
Mm-hmm.
in Kiev. He was delivering vehicles, and then he went back to Oxford. But he'll be our guest this week if all goes according to plan. And then the week after that, we have potentially a soldier. We recorded it. I say potentially because I don't know if something's going to come up before that.
Mm-hmm.
But so we have some stuff. as they say, in the can, and we have the generator now. And so I'm hoping that we start getting back to being more regular
Mm-hmm.
every Sunday, 8 p.m. local, which I think is 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Pacific. We're just going to keep doing it. I'd love to get our viewership up. So, if folks would spread the word, I don't know why we've taken this dip, but we have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to get more. I'd like to have these people's voices heard more. So if you want to, help spread the word, subscribe, comment, all that stuff on our shows, to help get that algorithm, pumping, so we can keep.
Yeah.
Because Ukraine is in many ways off the radar. So uh, there's a lot going on in the world, and I understand that, but it's still really important what's happening here. So I hope people
Agreed.
will watch.
I and not on my watch. It isn't. Um,
There it
it
is.
we will.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
the stuff.
So if people could go there, it's on Philip's page. Just look up Philip Ittner on the Edge. You'll see this channel. Subscribe to it. That'd be fantastic. And I greatly appreciate you coming on, brother. And we will see you on Saturday. Stay
Yeah.
safe and
Well,
stay warm.
also you could go to my personal channel as well. That's
Yeah.
the main one. But anyhow, regardless,
Hmm.
we'll talk on Saturday.
Hmm.
And yeah, let's
Yeah.
hope we get power sometime soon.
Yeah.
I've got batteries, so I'm fine, and I've got, uh,
Hmm.
you know, I'm okay. I'm not. It could be far worse,
Yes.
so it's okay. It's just more than anything else. It's just boring.
Well, there are worse problems to have in the
Because
world
you
than
can't,
being
yeah,
bored.
you
So.
can't, I can hardly leave the house because it's dangerous and dark and
Hmm.
all the rest of it. The streets aren't being, normally they would be being,
Lit.
cleaned of
Yep.
ice and snow, but they're
All
not.
right.
People are slipping and falling and hurting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, you sit around, you twiddle your thumbs, and you sit
Yep.
on your phone, and that's about
Mm-hmm.
all you can do. Try
Right.
and stay warm. And that's
Well,
for,
please do.
hundreds of thousands of people. So,
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, and I will see
all
you
right.
this weekend.
Well, you will indeed. I'll talk to you on Saturday.
All right. Cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers.
Philip Ittner joining us from Kiev. And thank you guys for supporting the Generators for Odessa channel, which I just showed up on there. We put the link in the description. But of course, Phil's channel itself is, where is here? Da, 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 da. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. Let me get this one in here. This is the actual let me get the actual channel for you, which is here. Yeah. And I'll put that in the chat right now so you guys can see it. And dink, let me put this in there. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sylvia. Thank you guys for the super chats today. That I just put his link into the chat room for everybody. It should go out pretty much everywhere. I'll also put it in the let's see. Why is this not post? There we go. Yeah. I just posted in the Instagram chat as well. So if you guys want to subscribe to his channel and help him out, that would be great. I know. I should be worried about growing my own channel and getting over 100K, but that's what you guys are for. Subscribe and help me get to that number. That would be terrific. That will make a huge difference. And I will see you guys this afternoon. Thank you for a great show this morning. I appreciate you being here and giving the greatest gift you can give anyone, which is your eyeballs. And I will see you this afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Like, subscribe to the channels, share it if you will. If you're ever on YouTube, you ever use YouTube, subscribe on that channel as well. If you use Twitch, think about becoming a subscriber there, which really helps. It's direct. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime for one subscription, so you can join me there. If you're on the Facebook page and stuff, you can follow obviously on there, and Instagram. I appreciate you guys a lot. And if you're on Substack, subscribe. That would be great to help. I don't hide anything behind a paywall, so I have nothing to offer anybody for doing that because I don't believe in hiding any of the stuff. If you want to support it, that's what you do. It's like, not, how like advertisers on TV don't have to do that. It's just odd. But I'm doing my best here to give you guys as much programming as is humanly possible in the near term. So thank you guys, and I will see you this afternoon.
Ask, I forgot it.
I don't know.
You ain't seen nothing. Yeah, yeah. We ain't saying nothing. Black bar from my
A lot of
past, can't
Epstein
track
stuff this afternoon.
Screenshots
Oh,
cropped out, can't
damn.
catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blood and face, can't fact check the madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too